In today's video, we're going to talk about fighting and arguments and disagreements, which are all a completely and totally normal part of every relationship. I'm Stacy Rocklein, and I help people who desire meaningful relationships to break emotional patterns, communicate their needs, and create deep connections. So if you don't get in arguments in your relationship, that's awesome. I am super excited for you. You should be on here teaching something to us, but you're in about like this much of the relationship space, because the rest of us, we disagree. We disagree with our partners, and three different patterns are playing themselves out, and you're probably getting stuck maybe in all of them, but definitely in one of them. And I want to pick those apart today. So 95%, and I totally just made up that number because I don't want to go figure it out, but 95% of the time we are having the same argument over and over and over again in our relationships. We are fighting about the same stuff. And it's about money, it's about sex, it's about kids. I mean, you know this. I'm not telling you anything new. You're having the same arguments over and over. So what can happen is that we're so relieved when the argument is resolved and we get on the other side of it that we just are like, thank God, and we move on and we push past, and then all of a sudden next time we're in it again. What is happening is we are never revisiting the issue underneath the argument. We're just, getting through this little surface experience, and we're not going down to what's happening underneath it. And you have to go back, and you've got to revisit this in a calm place, and you have to get on the same page with your partner. And that's a whole other, video and a whole nother teaching. But if you don't get on the same page on this issue, I can promise you that you're going to repeat this argument over and over and over and over again. And if that's okay with you, that's the reality that you want, that's your thing. But I personally do not want to repeat arguments over and over and over. That doesn't feel like we're making any traction in our relationship. Here's an example. For years, we had this recurring fight between Noel and I about dinner time. I wanted him home to eat dinner with the kids at 6:30. And it was like late enough that he could work as long as he wanted to, but at the same time I could get the kids in bed. So we would have this big fight about it, and then we would resolve that fight, that little fight, and then 6 months later we're in it again, and we're having this fight again over and over and over and over. Why? We never got on the same page where both people were honest about what we can do, what we're willing to do. And it wasn't until that happened that argument disappeared. And then once you're on the same page, then it goes away, right? Because we've all agreed to it. So that's the first pattern. You got to get on the same page. And if you're not willing to do that, to go back and do that, you can bet your bottom you're going to have that argument over and over and over. Second pattern that we repeat is this. When we are having an intense emotional experience, we are being poked at. And what's being poked at is our limiting beliefs. We all have like a handful or so of these beliefs about ourselves, these fear-based core beliefs like I'm lazy, I'm stupid, I'm selfish, I'm out of control. Like everybody's got them. It's perfectly normal, totally human thing, okay? When you have an intense emotional experience, you can bet that's being poked at. And so when you're in an argument, that is the pattern that's being repeated. That person, that partner is poking at something, and it's about you, right? If my husband comes to me and says, hey, you really lost your temper on the kids or whatever, that is going to cut right to my fear of being out of control, fear of being a bad mom, right? That's about me. And it's the same few things over and over that are going to be poked at. It isn't until we drill down to find those beliefs about ourselves that we can make any kind of gains in that area. We will be at the mercy of what happens outside here. And guess what? We don't get to change everybody else. We only get to work on ourselves. It's an inside job. And so until you take the time to dig down and find out what are those core beliefs that I have, so that you can see them coming, you can see them being poked at, and you can work with them, that you're going to find yourself having those reactions in the same circumstances. And that's just part of what's happening when we're having a disagreement. And the last pattern is you got to know your fighting style. Okay, everybody's got a fighting style, and it's all based on fear response, right? So if you're a runner, right, you take off. That's a fighting style. If you are freeze, that means that you stay there and you just take it. You take everything that's coming at you, but you don't react in any way. Or you're a fighter, right? You're gonna, angry word back or argue back or get defensive or maybe start the fights. Maybe you have a combination of a few. Like you've got, this is me, for example. I like to do like an angry word and then run, right? And then retreat. So you need to know what your fighting style is so that you can catch yourself in it and you can interrupt it, right? There is so much research out there about how our habitual behaviors and patterns are just like they're neural pathways. And I can't cite this research because I haven't done a research project on it, but you have to disrupt that and create a new pathway. So you have to recognize when you're in your fight style so that you can choose something different, especially if this is just resulting in unhealthy fighting and arguments and a lot of, negative feeling happening in your relationship. So you got to figure out what it is so you can disrupt it. Like here, for example, I don't always catch myself before I say the fight back, sentence, but I can totally feel the retreat. And when I feel the retreat is when I have to stop and I have to step forward and I have to come forward first and not retreat for 2 days and wait for someone to chase me down. That's how I interrupt that pattern so that I can create healthy communication, because we can do everything we want to try to minimize, fights and disagreements and arguments, but relationships require challenging conversations. We have to talk about stuff. And the more healthy we can do that, in a more healthy ways we can do that, the better off the relationship. The health of the relationship is benefited by that. So patterns in your relationship, you're fighting about the same things over and over and over. You got to stop and take some time at some point to get on the same page with your partner on that issue, right? And also what's happening inside you. The same little handful of beliefs are being poked at during these arguments. And until you take the time to do the work to dig around with those and flesh them out and become aware of them, you're going to keep having a reaction, a painful emotional reaction. And then finally, disrupting your fighting style and doing something different, doing something that's going to help you communicate in a loving, connected way. And if you're struggling with any of this and you feel stuck and you just can't make movement on this, or you want to partner with somebody to strategize how to change some of these things in your relationship, I am just a direct message away. Please drop me a quick message and we'll set up a time so we can strategize for you and your relationships. Thank you for watching. I wish you happy communication and happy relationships, and I will see you next time.